So thanks everybody for attending this webinar. This is a webinar where we're going to be looking at how Revizto is being used for infrastructure projects, specifically for highways. I'm very pleased to have Chris Andrew join me today. He's going to do a presentation on how AECOM are implementing Revizto on some of their projects. I'm not going to give too much more away. So the agenda, quite brief really. It's this introduction, then Chris will have his presentation. I will then talk about some workflows, how different clients are getting the actual models into Revizto, and then we'll have some Q&A at the end. So without further ado, I think we can hand over to Chris, and Chris, if you can share your screen and do your presentation, that would be great.
Can you stop sharing, Peter?
Yeah, yeah, sure, yeah. Okay, you should be good to go now.
Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Excellent. Right, hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Chris Andrew. I work for AECOM. I am the Roads UK now digital design and information management lead. I'm a senior engineer by trade, but I've got a bit of background in buildings and stuff from before my time at AECOM. I've worked on quite a lot of highways, major project schemes over the years, a couple listed there. Going on to why, what one of our problems were with the interdisciplinary design reviews and design checks and other names that you might know them, we found that because of the amount of data we were collating and the various different software packages we were using to generate things. So one of the things we have is we have a very multi-vendor software approach. We use Autodesk, Bentley, you name it, we use it in infrastructure, and it can lead to a lot of what I call file format gymnastics and lots and lots of interoperability issues between getting information from Civil 3D to Open Roads, getting it into Revit. It's just a nightmare. Software packages are starting to look at open format exchanges, but still there are teething issues. So we really had a big problem with collating information and a lot of lead time up to digital design reviews, as we call it in AECOM. And there was a team working for about 5 days prior to the actual meeting to federate models, convert, do the clash detection, prepare, and get something ready to be seen in the meetings. We use
Sorry to interrupt. Are you able to put your presentation onto presentation mode?
No worries.
Someone's saying the text is a bit small. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I've got quite a large monitor. Yeah, so sorry about that. So one of the things that was also a problem was we were using Navisworks, and a lot of our like engineers and project managers and stuff like that don't have high spec laptops. So when we're loading our big models in, and they can be like 15-20 kilometers long designs, their PCs weren't capable of running Navisworks and actually crashed. We even tried BIM 360 Glue, and that crashed their PCs as well. So it wasn't necessarily the 3D model wasn't necessarily inclusive and available for everybody to use, which then leads to only every few weeks when the DDR is happening, people like that being able to see it and being able to get involved. Issues were recorded via Excel, which isn't necessarily a problem, but again, wasn't very inclusive and had lots of issues with regard to tracking and seeing if things have been closed out. And we also had a very disconnected 2D and 3D markup workflow. So 2D drawings and PDFs were marked up using Adobe or PDF Exchange, and the 3D stuff was done in Navisworks, and then there was a disconnect between the tracking of those issues. So all of that stuff is why we went to Revizto. So exporters, they are available for pretty much every single one of our software, or at least the main ones. Some of the add-ons that are in AutoCAD and Bentley can be pushed to Revizto through those software, so it's not necessarily a problem that there isn't an exporter. And that allowed us for the information exchange to be a bit more seamless, a lot less time spent doing the cross changes, and has allowed us to work towards more open BIM standards, which has been great for us. Yeah, like I said, the authoring software, so the authors can then control what is being shown in the federated model. It doesn't rely on myself as a BIM coordinator, digital lead, on choosing when I upload stuff or getting them to send it me first and me being a bottleneck. They can do it themselves and then quickly go straight through into an ad hoc review with their discipline to go, right, this is the new updated model. Is there an issue? Is there some clashes? And have a visual check of what is going wrong. And it was taking days before, it's now minutes, depending on people's internet connections, but minutes generally. Obviously, Revizto has got an issue tracking, and that has been great for us, being able to manage and have conversations about issues and make sure issues are logged, not just clash issues, but I'll go on to a bit health and safety issues and anything basically that a risk because of a potential constraint or something like that for people to be aware of. It's allowed us to really expand and be more collaborative with the contractors and our client. And like I said, the issues with software and processing power has been reduced by the use of Revizto. It's been a lot easier for people with low spec laptops to install and work with. And then obviously a connected 2D and 3D markup and workflow tool, which is great. Quick introduction of this is the workflow that I've put together. We use ProjectWise as our common data environment. So all our data is stored on ProjectWise. It might come in from different sources, but generally is all stored on ProjectWise. For our Civil 3D and AutoCAD content, although there is a dedicated exporter from these packages, we like to create an NWC file and push to Navisworks because this maintains more of the metadata in Revizto and then in the IFC later on. Stuff like MicroStation, Open Roads, Open Bridge, Revit, and Open Buildings doesn't necessarily need to go through Navisworks because those exporters maintain the metadata around what the object is. So it'll include things like an asset identification, the uniclass classification, and other bits and pieces into Revizto. So when a user clicks on the object in Revizto, it shows information, then passed through IFC, which then can be passed on to Celebri for validation. It is maintained in Navisworks, which we ultimately pass on to our client who uses BIM 360. And then we put everything back on ProjectWise and store BCFs for record of the issue tracking. And I tried to do a lot of this with Microsoft's Power Automate to try and automate a lot of the manual processes in and out of Navisworks and Celebri, using Celebri Auto Run and Navisworks batch utility. So a couple of the projects we are currently using it on: A38 Derby Junctions and the M54, which is a new link road between the M54 and the M6 down around junction 11 where the M6 toll comes in. Currently going through all this detailed design ready for construction later next year and the year after, and it's been really good. There's been a lot of emphasis on by the designers and communication that has led to a lot of discussions. We've started bringing in borehole logs, which can be seen on here in the A38 project, and all the metadata around what the ground conditions are, bringing in existing survey information, which is the point cloud data shown for these two projects. So pulling in a lot of data. I think the A38 one is about 30 gig of point cloud data, and I think the M54 one is about 50 gig of point cloud data, which generally wouldn't be visible by people. They'd struggle to be able to display this, and it's been really good to get the existing state into people's minds and make them think about it. Back on a bit more of the efficiencies that we've found. Obviously, time and resources to federate and to do clash detection has been reduced drastically. Time in the DDR, so previously DDRs were running around 6 to 7 hours when they were being done, and this was primarily because of the size of projects. The ones we're doing now are no longer than 3 hours, and a lot more focused around what the disciplines have changed since the last one, and a lot more discussion goes off between the DDRs now because of the issue tracker. So time in meetings is reduced. No less loss of data. So when we were doing the exchange between Open Roads to AutoCAD, there was sometimes issues with metadata being lost, sometimes issues in conversion. So AutoCAD not understanding certain information that's in MicroStation and the same way. And that's gone now. There is no loss of information. Again, with the metadata, brilliant, and has allowed us to really push on PAS 1192 Part 6, health and safety and well-being in design, by geolocating issues that are historically logged in a spreadsheet and pushing it into the model. You can see here some examples. We use Open Roads Designer to put a point in 2D space, which is the triangle on the left-hand side, and the triangle on the right-hand side is automatically generated when the level is applied to that point. So they are linked. So if I move this in 2D space, the 3D one moves, and the metadata is applied to these objects, which is then passed through into Revizto and shown in the image on the right-hand side. That has a relatively complicated process, but the information is automated. What we do during health and safety review meetings is use the Revizto stamps to quickly identify locations using the hazard stamp in the model, and then we go back and use these triangles, which are for drawing and model production purposes, and close out these stamps once they are replaced by the triangles in the model. And I said some of the non-tangible benefits that we've seen are improved communication, improved collaboration, a lot more focus on the actual design and the engineering instead of worrying about how drawings are displayed and how more about how things are put together and how things are going to be built, and the sequence and issues around the geotechnical aspects, because we can see the boreholes, we can see the water level that's coming in, and it's really quite I can't think of the word I'm looking for there. It is really like it opens the mind to what we need to think about and what we need to discuss. And obviously the SHE issues has been great. It's really focused on some of the health and safety issues in the design. Yeah, and then we've pulled in the contractor. The input from the contractor has been second to none, has been great. We've been really getting a lot of input and a lot of feedback from the contractor, which is really driving the designs. And so some of the issues we've had, it's not been plain sailing. There has been some issues. One of them is the point cloud data. Due to the size of the point cloud data and the way we have set out our approach with the Revizto, we've had some issues with reprocessing the point cloud data. So we actually separated out the point cloud data from the proposed. This is overcome with Revizto 5, and Peter will talk a bit about that in a bit, where you can pick to load or unload the point cloud data, so people aren't reloading it all the time. Line work from traditional topo surveys has been a problem and not transferred, so we've had to do a lot of conversion into coloured meshes for surfaces. Filtering of data, again improved by Revizto 5, has been an issue. Currently we're having to go through and manually find information and colour code it and then save views. Inquiring on suitability of model data. So because we use ProjectWise, a lot of information is maintained in metadata about the file in ProjectWise. And we've overcome this by adding item type information, which is a MicroStation term. You could use Civil 3D property sets or block attributes in AutoCAD to embed metadata from ProjectWise into that file, into the object. So you can click on the object and you can see the source information about the model to see what state it is in BS 1192 or ISO 1960 workflow. Has it been approved? Has it been signed off? Is the client accepted it? And is it been published? so you know if you can build from it. So there's the linkage with ProjectWise from Revizto. That has been primarily through the authoring software, not a direct link, which has been okay for us. And one of the issues that's come up recently is a multiple versions. So the way ProjectWise and MicroStation-based software has worked with Revizto 4 is that it maintains a link to where it's saved on the C drive when it goes into Revizto. That has meant that we've had some superseded versions come in, but we filter it out using a search filter for version in the file path, and then gets rid of it. Again, solved in Revizto 5. Navigation as well. This has been a real problem, primarily for those who generally aren't used to CAD. And we've kind of got around it by suggesting people use gaming controllers. I personally have a 3D Connection Space Navigator, which is by far the best way to navigate in Revizto 5 and 4. But also to aid users who don't have these, we've created a series of viewpoints at every one of the major assets, so retaining walls, bridges, at the junctions, at gantries, so people can quickly navigate through the models. And finally, what am I planning for Revizto 5? So again, combining the point cloud data so we don't have these disjointed between existing and proposed information. Data filtering using the save search sets and the power of the properties, and using the data visibility tools to change the color depending on what is the suitability of the model, what am I asking it, and then obviously using greater use of the further integrations that Revizto have gone with Bentley software and with others. And the real one that I want to focus on with Revizto 5 is custom properties. So a way of being able to not just edit the metadata in the authoring software, but actually edit it in the Revizto 5. So if we agree in the DDR that this item is suitable for construction and is approved, we actually do it in Revizto 5 during the DDRs and sign it off, and that completes the quality audit. So we in AECOM we have a very standard process around review and checking of information. The ability to do these custom properties will allow us to seamlessly input that information into Revizto 5, and will really enhance some of the quality processes and provide efficiencies to our quality process that we haven't seen previously. And that is it for me. Thank you for listening, and all the questions we'll try and answer at the end. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chris. That's a really good insight into how you're successfully implementing Revizto. I'm going to share my screen now. Bear with me. Okay. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about some of the workflows which some of the infrastructure clients I work with implement. So I look after the engineering clients and also the architecture clients. Like I said, this is really going to be focusing on the infrastructure projects. Just to show you some of the sort of larger companies we work with, and all of these companies do implement Revizto in slightly different ways. Just a note on training as well, actually. The training is available for anybody that's any Revizto user, available to them in any way they want to utilize that. So with these big firms, the training can be done internally, but yeah, I suppose the point I'm trying to make is it's bespoke, it's tailored for each individual company, and you know how they want to actually drive the Revizto implementation. So moving on, Chris mentioned that we have a lot of integrations, and this is essentially a list of all of those integrations we have with software we actually have plugins with, and the supported formats here. I'm going to take a bit of a deeper dive into some of the workflows that I've actually experienced with clients during the training and the implementation. So what we're looking at here are some workflows that are being used and tested. So there's obviously quite a lot of images here and not a lot of text, but I think that's sometimes a nicer way to sort of present this type of information. But what we're looking at here from the top, we've got a Civil 3D logo and a Revizto logo, and that's just one project workflow that's being used at the moment. So the information is being pushed directly from Civil 3D and Revit, from the integrations directly from the plugins that we've got. We've also got recap. So these are logos are very similar, but that is actually the recap logo. So we've got projects where we're seeing point clouds, Civil 3D models and Revizto models, Revit models, all federated and combined in Revizto. This one here, and I'm going to talk a bit more about this, where we have when Civil 3D files are being imported into Revizto, all of the information that you have in the model space gets pushed into Revizto when you're exporting directly from Civil 3D. So sometimes, if the Civil 3D file isn't completely tidy, isn't cleaned up, there is at the moment a workflow that we advise, and that's to go through Navisworks and use the search sets within Navisworks to basically clean up, select the model geometry that you want to see inside the Revizto, and that's pushed from Navisworks into Revizto. And this one here is where the Civil 3D is going via Navis, and the Revit is going straight from Revit. What we're looking at here is obviously a lot more information coming in from the various different softwares, as Chris mentioned, but this is just a bit more of a visual example of what we're seeing. So again, the AutoCAD Civil and Civil models are going via Navis, and everything else, Revit, MicroStation, Open Buildings, Open Roads, all of that's coming directly from those softwares themselves. This down here is the new workflow with Revizto 5, which effectively takes out the Civil 3D via Navis route. So we're always trying to streamline processes and remove steps needed to get everything into this into our collaboration platform. And with Revizto 5, like I said, that's very doable. So I'm going to show you an example of the Civil 3D models that might not necessarily be cleaned up. So if I just do this a second. So here we have Civil 3D models that have been imported directly into Revizto 5. These are the raw files that haven't been cleaned up. And by the way, if you do have those files cleaned up, and some of the clients I work with do have that as a standard, where before they're shared on sort of CDEs, like ProjectWise, they are cleaned up, but in some cases they're not. So as I said, this is everything that's coming in from Civil 3D. So if your Civil 3D model looks like this, where there's a lot of stuff in here, you've got all these sort of work in progress bits of the model, all on different levels. This is another example of that same, well, another civil 3D model where you've got a lot of sort of stuff that you don't want to see in a federated model where you're trying to coordinate and check information. So the Navisworks example, so this here is an example or an image. I've chosen not to flip between Navis. I'm keeping everything inside this inside Revizto 5, just taking it as a screenshot, but for illustration purposes. But this is the civil 3D workflow before in Revizto 4, before we Revizto 5, before that sort of improvement. So you can see there again, there's a lot of stuff in here that you don't always want, and so with the search sets rather in Navisworks, they're used, and then this 3D view is tidied up. But because we are in Revizto 5 at the moment, I can show you what that looks like in the software. So I'm going to first of all just show you the files that are in here. So we have Revit files imported directly from Revit. We have Civil 3D files. So this storm, these down here came directly from Civil 3D. This one came from MicroStation. So you can see, you know, all of these things are coming directly from those softwares. If I come into the 3D view, let's just bring this across here. So this is all of the geometry that's been brought in from all those different softwares. This is a viewpoint I've saved, just showing you, you know, some of the stuff that you don't want to see, all of this, all these sort of working and random bits that people use when they're creating their Civil 3D models. And this is the view, the cleaned up view, and that's very easily done with the search sets that we've got. So I've just created a couple of search sets and put them in this folder with the unwanted stuff, and then hidden it and created a home view from there. So that's a you know, a much cleaner workflow than what we had before. So we've actually got through that quite quickly. I'm happy to sort of answer some questions now if people have got any. Does anybody have any questions? Does anybody want to ask Chris anything? I know that there's quite a lot of information in his presentation. Any questions at all? Either everything was really clear, or we've bamboozled you with things, or somebody's raised their hand. So let me just see if I can go to that person. Okay, sorry, I need to. Could you possibly post that question in the chat dialogue or in the questions? Okay, thank you. Peter's just saying sure, so thanks for that. Still getting used to some of these controls, to be honest, on the webinar. We have, just looking at the attendees, we have 55 people on the call. I recognize some of the people on here do need a plugin to read the files from the native format. So when you download Revizto, the software, the plugins, any software that we support with the plugin, that will automatically get basically embedded within the software. So in Revit, for example, you just get a Revizto 4 tab, and that's quite a straightforward process of exporting. You can also schedule that automatically, and anything like that. If you do become a Revizto user, then I would be available to run through that with you if that was necessary. So we have another question here from an anonymous person. Will you be able to circulate the Civil 3D Revizto workflow guide, or tell us where the training material is for that? Yeah, absolutely. So if you go to our website, we have a lot of material on there. We have a lot of training videos and guides for how to do that. So anything that you need to know on how to do this sort of stuff is available on our website. Alternatively, I can contact you afterwards, and I can give you a demonstration, or one of our other representatives. So we have another question here from Tom Barr. Looks really good. Our frameworks have lots of smaller projects that have short leading times. Any experience of using Revizto on smaller jobs? Absolutely. We have people using Revizto on very, very small jobs, that might only run for a few weeks, to very large jobs. And the reason it's nice sometimes to focus on the large jobs, because if you can do something like that on a large job, and you can handle that amount of information and those large data sets, then you would, in my mind, you would sort of think, yes, it would be, if it can be done on big projects, it can be done just as well, or more easily, arguably, on smaller ones. So yes, absolutely. So some of the smaller projects run, or rather, some clients have a large number of smaller projects, and so it's entirely up to you how you use this software. Some people actually use it for internal review as well as external sort of project-wide collaboration. So yes, I think the answer is absolutely. We have experience on smaller jobs, and the feedback there is really good. So yeah, we've got a few more minutes left. If we don't have any, you're welcome, Tom. So yeah, happy to answer anything else. Maybe just give it another minute or two. Whilst I'm waiting for that, there was something that Chris mentioned actually in the Revizto 5, in terms of some of the new features, and that's this tool here, where you've got the option to unload links. So it's quite obvious what that does, and it sort of says it down here. With some larger projects, or it doesn't even have to be a large project. It can be a small or medium-sized project, and with some very large, point clouds that you have to deal with. And some point clouds, especially, you don't always need to have those visible or switched on when you're doing your checks. So you can unload those, and what that will do is just unload it from the session, the Revizto session you're working in at the time. It's not going to delete that link. It's not going to hide it. It will just unload it from that session. So next time you want to use you come into a project, or even at the same time, you can load and unload as many times as you like in the same session. That's not an issue, and that could actually work quite nicely on larger projects where, say, if it's an airport or a hospital or any a civil large linear project where someone isn't working necessarily on the whole site. They can just unload the bits of the site that they're not needing to view, and they can just focus on those, and that helps with processing the information and the models whilst you're flying through in the 3D space. So we have another question from Tom. Just having a look at this. Any feedback from whether PD principal designer / CDM find it useful in fulfilling their duties? Absolutely. As Chris mentioned, they're using it. He's asking, does it integrate with InfraWorks? Yes, it does. I will have to get back to you on that separately on exactly how that integration works. I've not personally used it, but there definitely is a way to get information in from InfraWorks. I think we have a direct plugin, but I will get back to you on that. So going back to the principal designer, I actually had some experience before I worked for Revizto as in design management. So I'm familiar with the need for including that risk assessment within the design information and within the model. So yeah, absolutely. You can use stamps, which is, we're going into a slightly different subject there, but you can set up predefined issues where you use create an issue for say a health and safety hazard, and you can allocate that and basically mark that up on the model and identify areas where risks might occur. So you could have a generic sort of risk identifier or more specific ones. So that would certainly be useful in for principal designer duties. You could then very easily extract the issues, the things that you're marking up relating to health and safety, and you can then pull that out into a report very easily in multiple ways. You can also use our dashboarding system to give you live information from things like that. So yeah, absolutely, it can be used for CDM. How does it compare to Bentley's model, iModel Hub? Well, I think that's up for debate. I would say it's a superior tool, but I would say that. I think maybe that's a conversation to have with some of our other guys. If you, I can certainly put you in touch with somebody that where we can have a conversation on that. I'm getting some really tricky questions now. We've got about 5 minutes left.
I think it's fair to say with Bentley's iModel Hub, there's pros and cons. So there's some things that iModel Hub does better than Revizto, but there's things that Revizto does better than iModel Hub. So I think it's something that you have to take away yourself and do an assessment and see which one suits your needs better. And that's just a personal opinion and a personal approach I think you should take, is figure out which one works best for you and meets your needs personally. Peter will always say Revizto answers all questions, but that's something you need to figure out yourself. It's not something I can tell you, or Peter can tell you. You need to figure that one out.
Yeah, absolutely, and thank you very much for interjecting there, Chris. And it's always obviously Chris is a user of our software. He doesn't work for Revizto, so it's always good to have an opinion, which is an honest one. Great. Okay. I think that's probably it for the questions. I think people have probably had a good chance to ask a question if they wanted to ask. So if we haven't got anything else, we have finished slightly earlier, so I don't think that's a bad thing. So thank you very much, everybody, for attending. Let me just come over here. There we go. So if you want to find anything else out about Revizto, just go to our website. Revizto 5 is something that we're all very, very excited about. So yeah, have a look and see what you think. So thanks again, Chris, for joining. That was really useful, and hopefully people that are attending this call, especially the people, found that useful. Okay, great. Well, see you all again, and have a good day. Thanks for joining. Cheers.
Thank you.